Good morning, everyone. I hope you had a great week. I want to ask, of course, as we do all the time, are there any questions at this time about anything? I think for the last couple of weeks, most of our conversation has been about not only who we are, but more importantly, where we see ourselves as being. And there are several things that has taken place. Those things haven't taken place. They're they are speaking to us. It's truly my desire that everyone is able to, at some point, begin to see or read the signs of the times. There's a lot that's transpired in the last few weeks, and I want to see not only if there are questions about that, but also, are there any questions about anything that you have read or experienced during the course of this week? I will take that as no. We talked about Jesus and the signs of the time, the second coming, which is not a biblical, um, is not a biblical term at all. Then we talked about Jonah, and in speaking about Jonah, we talked about that for the last I think 3 or 4 sessions, and in doing so, we have been able to see the concepts in there that directly are applicable to us right now than we had seen each time previously. So I suppose we can start asking questions about that. Then we can go into the concepts of. No, I'm sorry. We can look at the actions that we are observing and experiencing now, and see if we can make headway out of them in terms of understanding where we are. Anyone? Well, the languages of Aramaic, Hebrew, Arabic, or all the Semitic languages are languages that deal with a lot of hyperbole. And that is because the Easterners are more animated and have expressed more emotions when the West is more stoic and make every effort to control the emotions. You have chosen what should I say? It's a philosophical language. Western languages are more philosophical and emotionless than are Eastern languages. So, with our being deeply ingrained with Western culture and language, sometimes it is difficult for us to see or read the signs of the time. I want to talk about that for a moment. We see that we have seen that Trump has lost his license. We've seen that his business license in New York. We've seen that well, McConnell had these moments of being frozen seemingly in time and a bit confused. We have seen the death of Dianne Feinstein, and we have seen the chaos that's taking place in the government. And we have also seen how the government itself is not that concerned about people, especially poor people. So what does that mean? What does all of these things mean? I would ask if there is someone who sees something in this before I express the observations that I have made. So anyone who would like to speak to this, I'm going somewhere with it. We have a talkative bunch this morning. Okay.
Yeah, I can add something about this. To me, it just seems like the potential for a redirection towards harmony in the sort of short time period of the the short opportunity that we have between the establishment or the old establishment literally dying off in some cases and a new establishment being created, either positive or negative. And it seems like Trump represents the negative. And by negative, it doesn't necessarily mean, I believe, that we'll be going down a path that we can't return from. It just means that the path is going to be much more rough in terms of what we would have to do collectively to pull ourselves out of it. But the positive is a much smoother, easier transition, requiring, I think, less collective effort. But it feels like to me we're seeing the beginning of what it looks like to be in that, as I said, sort of space between, as the old structure falls away and whatever it is we choose for the new one becomes more established. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I agree with everything you said, Nick. As a matter of fact, those are the words that I was going to use. I mean, it's a little different in wording, but I agree wholeheartedly. A bit more difficult.
Sage?
Yes?
Sage, excuse me, you're fading away. Your voice keeps
okay.
going in and out.
Okay. I would like to add something to that, if I may. When I saw it, first of all, is there anyone else who want to speak to this or ask Nick questions about what he said? Okay. I also see this as being an opportunity for us to change. I see I see Donald Trump losing his business license represents the failure of the socialism for the wealthy. I see that the God of this country, the world, is money. And power is based upon how much money you have or don't have. And I see this as a reckoning with the method through which this nation received its wealth, and a reckoning with how this nation has put the rest of the world into a type of financial bondage through the IMF and other methods of foreign lending and the extraction of resources from around the world. I see that coming to an end, as Nick was speaking about that with Trump. I also see McConnell representing the confusion that's in the governmental structure of this country now. I see him representing the energy of confusion, because not knowing how to function in this day and age has created great confusion for the concepts from which upon which this country was established. When you think about McConnell at his age, he is stuck in a period when he reached adulthood. And if you think about his teachers were people who were born in the late 1800s or the early 1900s. So that concept, that depth of idea that Africans are non-human and poor people are just that, poor people who got themselves into trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Those concepts are the ones that not only was he born with, educated with, he also grew up with them and was able to express himself freely as he entered politics in that regard. I see a great deal of confusion there. And then when we look at the idea of what we call, or what is being called rather, Generation Z, what do we see? I don't think that this generation that we call Generation Z, I don't think that's coincidental at all. I do believe that Generation Z is there for a purpose, and that purpose speaks to me anyway, and I hope I can get some discussion on this. That speaks to the last generation that's going to have to live under the circumstances that this generation has had to live under. The Z speaks to the end of an era, and I do believe that because the primary meaning of Tav in the Hebrew is true law, meaning that a law or directions that are aimed at making sure that the society is balanced. And having said all of that, coupled with what Nick has said, I see balance. I see harmony. The pieces of what I see with my eyes gives me an experience with my eye. And what I sense with my eye very strongly is the balance that we have been seeking. And the balance that we have been seeking is not so much how we will see it with our eyes as it is how we will experience it in a spiritually internal way. I do believe that there are some things that are beginning to change, especially with youth killing themselves, killing each other. I was talking with, excuse me one sec. Sorry, I had to sneeze. I was talking with one of my friends, and he was telling me that these kids in Southeast are killing each other, and it's being done pretty much every night. And when the police stop killing them, they start killing each other. So the question becomes, how does that change? Because all of this is connected. Every bit of it is connected. When people feel like they have nothing to lose or have convinced themselves that they are less than who they really are, then you end up in this kind of situation. When you call yourself the B word, when you call yourself pimps and hoes, and you call yourself these disgusting names, you are self-dehumanizing. And when you begin to dehumanize yourself by virtue of all the negative things that you have been charged with, when you embrace that negativity, you begin to break down your sense of humanity. And just as we have spoken openly, clearly, about how we are seeing or being shown the connection between church and government, or religion and government, and how it has been successful in not only what word am I looking for? Indoctrinating society, manipulating society, but also in it's successful in teaching that the God that we serve is one who is distant from us, as opposed to we being created in His image. And when you diminish even further by teaching a people that they are functioning under the curse of Ham, and black people are supposed to, or people of color are supposed to be servants in a very, very material way to Europeans. And the words that you use to dehumanize yourself also buys into that. So we take all of these things and put them together, and we begin to see a tapestry being woven that gives us an idea, not an idea, gives us an insight as to where we are. My belief also is that when we begin to embrace the reality of the things that Nick and I have talked about, it is at that time that we begin to see the whole puzzle clearly. And it is at that time that we will begin to see a decrease in violence. We'll begin to see the pestilence, like in the land, like COVID. We begin to see it less effective or disappearing altogether. So that's what I'm seeing at this juncture, and I would like to see if there are any of you who would like to respond to that, offer some more clarity, raise questions. If so, would you do that now?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's difficult because the as the sort of need for the return to harmony becomes greater, I think the resistance to that, uh, maybe resistance is a bad word, but the ability to gather our collective intent in a particular direction also becomes more difficult. And I believe that that intent must be gathered and directed in the same direction, or at least the intent itself must be similar on a collective level to create that exact energy that will return us to a state where we do not need to have these kind of chaotic occurrences, which are themselves attempts to get our attention. I'm sure we're all familiar with the phrase, the only thing that needs to happen for like evil to prevail is for quote unquote good people to do nothing. And on a metaphysical and spiritual level, ignorance is the equivalent of doing nothing, or having a sort of unfocused intent, or having a disharmonious sort of collective awareness is the equivalent of doing nothing in response to a chaotic situation, I believe. But I agree. I think all of those things will be mitigated if, for our part, we can provide the seed that implants itself in our macro awareness that grows into that collective intent. And it is not just us physically here on the phone doing that, but everyone in the world who seeks a similar thing, which is the awareness of spirit, the awareness of self, and the awareness of how we're all connected to each other and to our shared experience of life in this physical dimension. But it shouldn't be this difficult, I feel like, but it just is, because of concerted effort by the masters of material reality, as I'm sure they believe and style themselves to be. But the concerted effort on our part is first and foremost spiritual, but also that sort of filters down into social and other sort of experiences of life. But anyway, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I hope this adds to the lesson. In order to bring balance and harmony in the earth, the individual themselves must have some kind of idea of what balance and harmony is. So if I'm bringing balance and harmony in the earth, and I do, I have to have somewhat of an idea of what I think balance and harmony is, which could be different from the next individual. In some gatherings, some people question.
Can I respond to that first?
What was that?
Let me respond to the first thing you just said. Yeah, that is true. Which is why the importance of the intent is as important as it is, because the specific vision may be different, but the intent is what unites on a sort of conscious level or subconscious level a group of people, because the intent can be similar even though the specific vision may be different. But anyway, I just wanted to add that before you continued. Thank you.
And thank you for helping me clean that up too. In some arenas, I'm questioned because I'm different. And in being different, sometimes I'm just different because I choose to be different. And in other cases, I'm different just because I'm different. Yet I'm questioning being different, and I question them because all them the same. So, in this whole rhythm of bringing balance and harmony to the earth, when I look at individuals or an individual, I really want to know the content of their maneuverability. Why do you do what you do? Why do you start your morning out every morning reading Proverbs? What's the advantage of it? What's the disadvantage of it? How does it aid you through the day? This whole aspect of the physical eye, is it good? Yes. However, I will say, I will show favor with your inner eye, or my inner eye. So if we're going to bring balance in the earth, harmony, the individual that wants that, if I want that, then I have to have some kind of interpretation of what balance and harmony is, and it may be different from other people. Yet that's all I want. Just whoever wants to bring that balance and harmony in the earth, they have to have somewhat of an interpretation of what balance and harmony looks like, feels like, and how it's implemented. Thank you.
Thank you, George. I see what you're saying. However, I also see what Nick is saying. And if I'm right, Nick, what we're saying is that desire and intent are the same. We have desire for harmony. Our intent is to bring harmony. However, what it looks like, we have no clue, because we are not to shape it. Is that what you were saying?
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Okay. So that being the case, then all we can possibly do is hold on to our desires and have pure intention. And we will begin to see the manifestation of what harmony looks like, not in terms of seeing the harmony itself, but seeing the signs that are guiding us, that are pointing us in that direction, allowing us to see and to experience that the harmony that we desire is being manifested. The reality of it is coming in clear, becoming clearer and clearer. And more importantly than that, it also let us see that our desires and our intents are not futile, that they are real, and that we can see the spiritual essence of the now being manifested in the material world. There is no disconnect between the material world and the spiritual world. Never has been, but there has been efforts to teach, efforts to make people believe that is a disconnect, when it really, really doesn't exist. In order for the material to be disconnected from the spiritual, then we have to we would be disconnected from our bodies, because these physical bodies are kept in a place of functionality by virtue of breathing, which is spirit rather, and by virtue of eating, which is material. So the combination of these two is what allows us to see in real time that there is no division between the world of spirituality and the world of material. And when we can only see with our eyes and not with our eye, then therein lies the confusion about having been disconnected from the world of existence. And it baffles me now that we can talk about being in the image and likeness and never really understand until recently what that means. So I guess I'm saying that if we be still long enough and clear our minds instead of trying to meditate on something or about something, let's just clear our minds and let everything flow through it, and then be desirous of the things that our eyes see be translated by our eye so we can understand it. When things are translated from the material by your eye, it is then that you begin to experience your soul renewing your mind. And you really don't see when it starts. However, you know that it's there. And you know that it's happening because of the internal experiences that you have. I was talking with someone last night, and it felt odd to me because I felt like I was living in two worlds. I felt like I felt confusion, and when I got off the phone and sat with it, I began to see the separation, not the separation, the clarity between the two. The material world and the spiritual world was colliding, and there were things in both worlds that I needed to understand. I didn't realize that until I sat with it. So when we take the time to do that, to sit with our desires, to sit with our intent, then that is a clear way, a definite way rather, to have your soul translate, interpret, however you want to use that word, those words, so you can understand the material world better. I'm done. Questions, comments?
I have a question. Pastor Jay, will you reiterate on what you said about the image and likeness and sitting with something? And what's the purpose of sitting with something?
Image, okay. Image and likeness speaks to the emotional essence of our being, or the spiritual essence of who we are. It does not refer to in any way our body, because Elohim has a body only with us. We were created. The entity that was created was a spiritual being, and when the skin was added, or when the spirit was placed in a physical body, the body did not become the hands and fingers and feet of Elohim. The body became a method of transporting Elohim through this material world. Therefore, image and likeness speaks to principles. It speaks to essence, emotions, divine thought, and the ability to create without having to assemble different parts from this physical world to make something. Creating means just what it's saying, creating something that appears to be non-existent. Like right now, in this earth realm, the substance with which we have to create is confusion. It's confusion. When people are confused about who they are, they only see the material essence of their being, And when they see that material essence of their being, they only see what they want. And when they begin to take what they want, therein lies massive confusion. And because of that massive confusion, we end up with all the isms that we've talked about in religion and other stuff. So this idea of image and likeness has absolutely nothing to do with the physicality of this earth, inclusive of our bodies. Does that help that part, Evan?
Yes, sir.
Any questions about that? Now, when it comes to sitting with it, I'm
sorry, I couldn't get on fast enough. I had a follow-up question. You said we use chaos. We use things like the chaos to create the balance and harmony. Is that what you said? It is the substance that we use for creation.
Yes.
So then, with everything that's going on that we've been talking about, then that only says to us that we've got more fodder, more things to use for creation. The more chaos there is, the more opportunity for enlightenment. And so if with our intent and our desire, we stay the course, the it's darkest before the dawn. It seems in the material that things are not going right. But what all the chaos tells us is that if we're staying the course, that the enlightenment that follows is going to be so much greater. And that's the thing that we need to stay focused and targeted on, that all of this is trying to say, okay, take another route, get off the road. No, that's not what it says to us. It says that we're doing the right thing. Because all of this is occurring to try to get us distracted, to try to get us off the road, to try to get us from seeing the universe with harmony and balance. So all of this is telling us, even though it looks with the eyes, it looks like chaos, all of it is telling us that, wow, look what we've got, and look what we are creating as a result of all of this useful straw, if you will, like the straw the Egyptians used, all of this useful chaos that surrounds us. Thank you.
You mentioned the Egyptians making bricks without straw. That is bringing physical, that is bringing to a place of rightness the physicality of this world by spiritual essence. Without straw, the straw represents the material things in this world that we seek to hold it together, which actually results in confusion. And the lack of the straw speaks to the spiritual nature of bringing this world to a place of balance rather than leaving it in a chaotic condition. part of what you were saying, Barbara?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, any questions about that?
Well, Reb, or to anyone who can answer it, the civil war that takes place between the material world and the spiritual world, it's been said that the stay-at-home parent is one of the most unappreciated occupations in the earth or in the United States. So if it is underappreciated, what is it that we do to appreciate it? How do we give it attention? When we have career fairs at school, are we thinking about bringing a stay-at-home parent, which could also be a male, to enlighten the students of this is what I do? So if I want to exalt some spiritual awareness, when I see it being done or implemented, I got to give it some kind of attention. So if we're not giving spiritual maneuverability a data boy or a pat on the back, some people may not buy into it. Because if you ask people in my generation, 50 to 52, a daddy is to leave, if I'm quoting it right, an inheritance to his children and also his children's children. 8 out of 10 people in my era would associate that with property, 401k, insurance policy. Now, if you were to ask Reverend Richard and Miss Richard and or people out of that era, their answer, 8 out of 10 of them, they may say bonds because bonds was something big, and it's still big to some people. They ain't going to associate too much stuff with money. They going to say things like manners, yes ma'am, no ma'am, extend your hand back, each one teach one. So if I want spiritual maneuverability to have some kind of existence, when I see it being done, I got to acknowledge it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody want to respond to that? Ask a question about it? Make a comment. We are not talking about things in the material world. Go ahead. We're not talking about things in the material world when we talk about the harmony. We're not talking about humility from the material world. The only way humility can be assessed is spiritually. Humility is something that you experience. It's not something that you feel, that you see rather, with your physical eyes. The idea of a stay-at-home parent has very little, if anything, to do with what we're talking about, because if we don't understand spiritual truth, stay-at-home parenting doesn't matter. If you talk about leaving to your family an inheritance, then the most important inheritance that you can ever leave is a spiritual inheritance. A inheritance is knowing who you are. I grew up believing that. Even though I grew up in a religious household, I grew up being told that. Don't forget who you are. Now, we were, at that time, don't forget who you are, embraced a lot of stuff. Because when we were told, don't forget that you're Richard, no matter where you go, that is talking about your attitude. That is speaking to you being respectful, that you being honest. It's speaking to things that you can't see, but things that you can experience. We were not told to leave home and get rich. We were told to reach out to other people. We were not taught to accumulate wealth or material things regardless of how you had to do it. We were told that if we are honest with people, if we are honest with ourselves, then the Creator or God would look out for us and we would be taken care of. That's what we were told. Things like that, as opposed to the accumulation of physical wealth. As a matter of truth, during my era of growing up, the greatest thing that you could have is land. And but all the other stuff, it just didn't matter. I don't see us as a group of people ever fighting to be multimillionaires. I just want to be comfortable. I want to be able to do what I desire to do. And what would I do with $1 billion? Phoebe and I were talking about the lotteries the other week and how much they were. And what we were talking about is, okay, you go get $300 million. What you going to do with $300 million? And we laughed, and it was like, give it away. That's the attitude that I have, that we have. What am I saying to you? Our focus has been survival. It has not been money. So our focus has always been, in a sense, spiritual, and we didn't know it, but it has been survival. And our survival was based upon God. And when I left home to go to college, my grandmama said to me, I don't have money to give you, but whenever you are down, read the 27th Psalm. It will lift you up. Those kinds of inheritance that we receive are the type of inheritance that brought us all to the place where we are right now in terms of learning who we are and learning what the scriptures are really saying. Does that make sense, George?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And it's always made sense. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Questions, comments?
The second part of Evelyn's question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Anyway, yeah. Okay. Okay. Let me do this. Kathy, are you on?
I am.
Would you respond to that? You were the one who brought us that concept, the idea of sitting with.
Sure, I'll be happy to. And basically, what we've talked about today has been the perfect example of what it means to sit with. We've talked about, I think when George was saying, having an idea of what balance looks like. When you encounter different situations in life, circumstances, be it thoughts, actual circumstances, or whatever it may be that you encounter that will make you feel off kilter, that will upset you and make you feel a certain way because you are now looking at that situation through your eyes. Sitting with it is like bringing you back to center, bringing you back to a place of balance so that you see that circumstance through your, would you please mute your phone, whoever that is? so that you can see that circumstance through your eye. When we see things through our eye, we act from a place of balance. We approach that situation from a place of balance, not from a place of emotional upheaval or from a place of chaos. But like we said, the chaos is necessary to bring us to that point of saying, you know what? I've got to be still and center myself and see this for what it really is and see it for where it's coming from and not see it as something as a personal attack on me, or even if it was meant to be a personal attack on me. I don't have to let that thing be what it was supposed to be, because when I sit with it, I change everything about that and the way I am going to respond to it. So sitting with is nothing more than centering yourself or going back to a place of balance where you're looking at it through your eye and not through your eyes, and allowing yourself to stay in a place of balance, if that makes sense.
It does. Anyone, any questions or comments about that?
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to respond to that in terms of the experience that I had this past week at the Criminal Justice Center, basically dealing with a young adult who has a perception about the judicial system that just creates anger for him, and in preparation, for court, he was called to appear before the judge, and the judge had asked him that if he could please wait until session, was about over so he could talk to him personally. And so the particular young man was very angered, and observing him, my concern was for him to be able to receive that which would have been helpful to him. And in his situation, as I said, he was angered. And so we went sidebar where I was just trying to be still and not let the emotions kick in terms of just trying to have him to just maybe be patient to understand that it might be, something that could be very beneficial for him to have the opportunity to talk with the judge privately. So to make a long story short, at the conclusion, his whole mindset was, the criminal justice system is bad. There's nothing good in terms of anything when, we come to court. And so, again, as he was able to kind of, just listen, there was the court administrator, who came and spoke to him privately, just to say that we're all here for the purpose of it being a win-win situation where you could see how we may be able to help you. So to conclude, the judge spoke with him privately and was able to help him, not so much in terms of breaking that mindset about judgment in terms of the judicial system or people, but the judge was able to provide him with finances, what the judge didn't have to do. The judge kind of spoke to him from his heart in terms of the purpose of him wanting to meet with him. And so, again, to sum it all up, in terms of that stillness, I kind of, in my spirit, sensed that it was an opportunity where we have to look at how we change the mindset in terms of not judging people all the same, but just being able to be still, as you mentioned, Kathy, in terms of just letting the spirit have its way, where he was able to see the outcome. The following day, when we had our focus group session, I brought up that situation, not to say names, but just to say again how important it is that our perception to be one that we can tap into the soul that we have to help humanity. So I don't know if that resonates in terms of being still, but it was just something that I wanted to see with my eye in terms of how can I help this young man not to be judgmental about the things that he sees from the outside, but how do he go inside himself and realize that, this was beneficial for me to wait because I was able to see. So that resonates a little bit about
Thank you, George. I think that was a perfect example, so thank you.
Thank you.
Questions, comments?
Right, Pastor,
Go ahead.
hello?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I asked that question, those two questions, because every time we talk about things, there's always more to, we always getting something extra out of, the questions and everything. So that's why I asked you got the teachers and you guys to reiterate on what the image and likeness and sitting with things mean. And it brought all of this out today. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments?
I appreciate the reminder that it doesn't matter what we see with our eyes. The important thing is, do we respond with our eye? Because therein, the things are translated for me when I respond with my eye and what my eye has seen. So thank you for that reminder, Kathy.
Thank you, Barbara.
Okay. There was one other thing that I wanted to bring up. I have not quite seen it clearly yet. And the significance of having brought someone arrested someone rather, who was involved in the killing of Tupac. Might not seem relevant, but it really is. I think it speaks to that generation also, because, quite frankly, that is the generation that was more violent toward each other than any generation prior to them. And it has morphed into what we are seeing now. We see young men calling themselves thugs and gangsters, and those are terms of endearment, regardless of regardless of the reflection that it shows about us and ourselves, and what people who are calling themselves thugs, how they see themselves. That excuse me, I'm wondering if this is bringing our attention back to that generation and showing us that this also is something that we not only have influenced, but something that must be continuously influenced, so that it will no longer be destructive in the society. Because when we talk about thugs and gangsters, that's mimicking mafia types. And the amount of violence is no different than the violence of the mafia in its early days, especially in the 30s and 40s. So I like to get, if I can, a response or comments or to that.
Yeah, I also saw that, and it's very interesting that happened. When did 1996? Okay. I just think that's interesting because, yeah, that was also the era that one of the bills that went through Congress allowed for the great acceleration Everybody, if you got a phone that's not on mute, check it. One of the bills that went through Congress, also championed by our current president, Joe Biden, wasn't it the Crime Bill 1994 or whenever that was. But that allowed for great acceleration in the rate at which poor Black men were incarcerated. And I just think that somehow we've come back around to that. Mute your phone, please. Somebody.
Phone, please.
Thank you, I think. But it seems like we've come back around to. Hey, if your phone number ends in 310, mute your phone, please. Thank you. But we've come back around to that era, but somehow it feels like to me a sort of step in the right direction despite all the chaos that we've seen, because Joe Biden is also now, I believe, the first sitting president to join a picket line. So in, I believe, his sort of waning years, he is softening his previous behavior in a way, although he's still very much a part of that kind of elitist establishment that does not really think kindly of poor and Black people. I think he himself has loosened that rigidity in his older age. So it says to me that this cycle that we're in, as we come back around to it, is moving in a more positive direction, despite all of the chaos that was created at its beginning. Because I think the early 90s were the most violent period in the history of the United States in terms of just homicides and stuff like that on a per capita interpersonal level. And so that has never really been, well, we're starting to move out of that cycle, it seems like to me, because the entire history of gangster rap, etc., begins basically around then. So it seems like to me that we are, whatever consciousness produces that, we are slowly moving out of it. Even though it can happen faster, and we would like it to happen faster, but I think in terms of a sign of the times, that is what this is partly demonstrating. Thank you.
Thank you. Isn't this the 50th year rap? I mean of hip hop.
Yes, it is.
So this is the year of Jubilee, right? So how does the year of Jubilee relate to that? In the year of Jubilee, everything is returned to the way it was originally. So I can see very clearly points that Nick making in regards to that. I can see the change there. I can the sense of feeling it. This is, I do believe that it's no coincidence that this 50th year and locating or coming arresting the murder of Tupac, they knew who did it from the beginning, but to be able to arrest them, that in itself speaks volumes. The shift that we are experiencing internally. Avoid by all means, do everything you can. Would you mute your phone, please? Do everything you can to avoid making decisions but based on what your eyes see rather than what you experience internally. By all means, make an effort to disallow, as Kathy mentioned earlier, by sitting with it, disallow those things that is meant for your bad. Make them give something for your ripeness. When we allow things that said or done knock us off the pathway, and it does that, and will be doing that, don't let it keep you off. Don't let it keep you off the pathway. Make every effort to refocus. Close your eyes, sit with it. Let you be refreshed in what you know the truth to be. I think it's when we're speaking about Generation Z and Tav meaning true law. I believe that this Generation Z is the generation that is pushing very hard to change everything. They don't see homosexuals; they see people. They don't see the N-words; they see people, and have deep compassion for poor people. And when Nick mentioned Biden in regards to that 94 crime bill, that was an energy that was equal to the energy of Trump when he had those when he took out the ad in New York, actually campaigning for those 4 kids to be killed, be executed. Now, both of those men have been head to head for the last 4 or 5 years, 4 years, and now we are seeing, as Nick said, a shift with Biden, and the meaning, I do believe, of the attitude of Trump that he represents, rather, being in the forefront of enslavement through jobs, through education, and the shift with Biden being we must change things. I think that was made more evident when he went to Michigan. Yes, it was a political act. Of course it was. However, nothing happens without a reason. And we are creators. And when we see things like that, and we speak to them, and we express what we are experiencing with them, we are changing them to be that to reflect what we are experiencing and what our desires are, because the one who created us is not going to do anything in this earth. It is us who have to do that. And when we begin to speak positively about what we are seeing, it is then that we are in the process of creating. So every single session that we have, we are creating. And every word that you speak, you are creating. So our thoughts and our speech must match our desires and our intent. Thank you. Anyone? Comments? Questions? Is it clear?
Pastor, I have a question.
Go ahead.
And I don't know if everybody's aware of this, but I've been seeing where they're saying October 4th, that they will be sending out different frequencies through phones, televisions, and radios. Is that something that we are to be concerned about? Or does that, what you just said about what they meant for our bad is for our good? Have you heard anything about that? Anyone?
Yes. And yeah, there's a whole world of conspiracy stuff that we could choose to get into. Some of it is true, some of it is not true. All of that is unnecessary for us generally to deal with, because it is mostly the application of, and it's the combination of anxiety and intellectual assessment of the situation. There's always some group of people attempting to remain in power somehow. As far as that specific issue, I don't discount the possibility, but no, I don't think that is anything. Exactly what would they be doing with 5G that they couldn't do with 4 or 3 or 2? Like, all of these things are unnecessary explanations in my belief for these kinds of things. If you wanted to do something like that to a population, there's other much easier ways of doing that. And these are sort of typical conspiratorial, for the most part. If you're talking about, you know, the kinds of things that make the rounds on the internet, these are typical conspiratorial things that come and go. Our position and responsibility does not change. And depending on what it is you see, it may or may not be true. But attempting to parse all that information and determine what is and what is not necessarily something we need to do for most of that kind of stuff, because it is a deluge of noise and information and misinformation. So that is the general attitude I have towards things like that. As I said, specifically about this sort of 5G thing, no, I don't think that's the thing. I do not believe that the vaccines that we've been given are going to sort of activate at some point or anything like that. But you know, I think there's a place and time for those to discuss those kinds of things. But at this point, they are mostly a distraction. Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Evelyn?
Yeah, I was just saying thank you, because I was looking at it as a distraction as well. And fear. It was putting a lot of fear out there. So they're doing what they want to do. But yeah, thank you, Nick.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, there's absolutely nothing that we need to be concerned about that reeks of being a conspiracy. If we don't receive the direction from our Creator to deal with stuff, we don't do it. If I felt like harm could be done was going to be done to me, rather, through the energy that powers cell phones, etc., then would I truly be believing that I'm Elohim? Nothing, absolutely nothing, can happen to any of us without our Creator, without the universe being involved in it. So there are things, as Nick said, that I just don't bother with, especially if it's on the internet. But if you were to look at those things, you would be on the internet searching to see where they came from for the rest of your life. And by the time you finish with that one, there will be 10 more to do the same thing with. So I just discounted. That's all. I just discounted. I'm done. Anyone else? Any questions or comments? I will say this. I appreciate you bringing that up, Evelyn, because there are people who scour the internet and have grave questions about everything from what you brought up to the reality of spirituality and how we are supposed to be spiritual, all these how-tos, as opposed to simply being desirous and embracing a pure intent. So thank you.
Thank you, Pastor.
Are there any other questions or comments? Isn't Sunday the first Sunday tomorrow?
Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay. So we are supposed to be on with California tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Appreciate you guys. If there's not anything else for us to cover. Oh,
Pastor, aren't we also supposed to meet in person?
yeah, tomorrow is a Sunday. We meet in person. Yes, Sunday, Saturday. I think they met in person today, but Sunday also in person.
I thought it was the first and second Sunday and Saturday.
Oh, I'm sorry. It is. It's supposed to be
Yeah.
tomorrow. I'm sorry. Next Saturday, rather. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah. Right. I want to say something. Would you in the recording, please?
Oh,
Ramel?
wait a minute. Yep, just a moment. Sorry. I gotta get my glasses on. Hold on. I just entered the whole thing, did I?
No, we're still here.
Oh,
We're still
okay.
here.
You shared your screen.
I'm
You-
sorry.
Hey, Rev, somebody give me clarification. Are we meeting tomorrow